The story of my very first memory. It's an odd question. Think about it for a moment. What is really the first thing that you ever actually recall as a concrete memory? I'm about to tell you mine, and it may not be what you think. Well, the facts are, I'm 62. I was born in 1952, right here in Seattle, Washington, a long time ago, and I remember none of that. Most people remember back to about the age of 3. Some say they can remember back to the womb. I can take it back to about the age of 6, which is about 1958. And if there aren't any actual repressed emotional memories why I can't get back to the age of 3, that some, say, psychiatrist who's listening could help me with, all I can tell you is, fuck you. If the memories are repressed, I don't want them. That having been said, when I was 6 years old in 1958, it's rather unusual because my first memory is actually in transit. I don't remember a time where I could not read at an adult level. I've always, to the best of my memory, been able to read the newspaper and understand what's going on, the whole thing. No problem. Early literature classes for me were dumb. I do remember being in an airplane, but I have absolutely no recall of where that plane took off. What airport, what state, what situation, none. I just remember being in flight. And being an avid reader from a young age, I was reading a sign on the seat in front of me, and it said, air distress bag. And I looked at it and I thought, okay, air distress bag. That means if I feel distress, and I read the instructions, and I understood, okay, this is how you use an air distress bag. And then I used the air distress bag. So my first memory of life is actually of vomiting in flight. It was a dreadful flight. Things went downhill from there. This is back in the days where there weren't a lot of transcontinental flights. There was a lot of island hopping, and there were even leftover prop planes that weren't jets, and there was a lot of turbulence. So on one of the island hops, I noticed that the cargo bay was open, and they were jettisoning unnecessary cargo, like people's actual luggage and belongings, because we weren't sure if we would actually get to the next island, which left me with, of course, a very wonderful and secure feeling about the rest of my life and the possibility of having one. We finally got to the last island, and we got word that, okay, this is it. We're on an actual jet, and the jet's going to take my whole family and me all the way to where we're going. I'm going to sleep in a nice bed that night, surrounded by my family, and be a really secure 6-year-old kid. And the whole problem is over. The jet gets off the ground. In those days, they didn't turn back and land once you got off the ground. And all of a sudden, this young man, must have been maybe 15 or 16, starts crying, "Mother's dead! Mother's dead! Mother's dead!" And he kept going on like this as we were actually taking off into the air. And it looked like this could go on for the rest of the flight. And I was a very intelligent young man, and I figured out, even as a 6-year-old, okay, this guy's about 16 years old, and his mother died. It's a sudden funeral, and they just buried her, and he has to go off to another life, and it's very strange for him, so he feels horrible. But it was my introduction to mixed feelings and cognitive dissonance, because at the same time I was thinking, This kid is really screwed. I'm 6 years old. I want to be in a warm, safe place with my family. That's all I want in the whole world. And this poor kid just kept screaming, "Mother's dead! Mother's dead!" And finally the stewardess and the captain came down and they injected him with a sedative. He was so far gone on grief, he didn't actually feel the needle going into his arm. He just kind of like wound down like a key dog. To, "Mother's dead. Mother's dead. Mother's dead." And finally he was asleep, and I realized what it really was in the world to have mixed feelings. Now, this obviously was the absolute and total peak of my psycho-intellectual emotional development, and everything since then has been a gradual downhill slide into 62-year-old oblivion. But that having been said, I notice that there are still a few people listening, so maybe I should perform my second and final poem.
Yeah!